Good evening, folks. Welcome to Isshinryu Today. I'm the host of the program, Master Kyle Forrest out of Lexington, North Carolina, direct descendant under Hanshi Phil Little. It's an honor to have you join us tonight on the Isshinryu Today podcast system. We have got a great lineup. We spend the last 8 weeks, 9 weeks actually, because one of the codes took up 2 weeks, but we did an in-depth discussion of the Isshinryu codes, the 8 Isshinryu codes of Isshinryu karate, how it relates to your lifestyle, how it relates to your training, and how it can just make you a better person in general. So the book that I was using for the codes, as I want to put it out on the program, is called Isshinryu Karate, The Ultimate Fighting Art by Harold Long and Tim McGee. This is the reference book that I use, and I call it my Isshinryu Bible because this is what I've always used through my training, and it is directly signed by my sensei, Hanshi Phil Little. And you can have a copy too, but I wanted you to tell you how. If you'll reach out to me directly, or if you can email Hanshi Little, you can purchase one of these books as well. They are on sale. He has these. And if you reach out to me, then I'll have to reach out to him and get them for you and make sure that you give him all your details. And you can have one of these books because we'll be doing this every show, every week. We do one a week, and we'll be using that book as we do our show. So it's a great reference that you can read along and study with. So if you'd like to get that book, reach out to me. We always got a saying on the show, and our saying on the show is we must remember where we come from in order to know where we're going. Well, tonight serves true with that. We've got a panel of masters and grandmasters with a lot of knowledge that are going to talk about these codes. You heard me talk over the last 8 weeks in detail about these codes. Now you're going to get a different perspective from the masters and the grandmasters and understanding what they mean. But our first shout out tonight goes out to our founder, Tatsuo Shimabuku. Thank you for sharing your culture with our Marine, our servicemen, our young servicemen that served and sacrificed their lives for our country. That in itself is a true honor. And then for these guys to pioneer it back to the United States and start opening up dojos in the United States when there was no karate here. They were the first ones that introduced us to this. So once they did this, they started getting students. So my next shout out goes to the second generation students, the ones that took what the first generations taught and spread it abroad throughout the United States of America and even further into the international, intercontinental islands and different countries that are there today. So without them guys, we must remember those guys and remember where we come from. That's going to be our pathway to where we're going. And that's what tonight's show is about. And you'll see as we dive into this Kempo Gokui, into this direction in which we're going. I see Miss Rebecca has dropped off, and I will try to do the announcements or what I can. I'm going to the Middle Tennessee Isshinryu Karate Games. It's going to be in Crossville, Tennessee this year. That's this Saturday. We will be competing, representing the USIKA, and hopefully we'll do well. We've trained really hard. I see Hanshi Mady is joined us too, so glad to have him on board. But then the next one I want to give my announcements to before we get into our material is the Circle of Masters coming up in September of this year. And listen, guys, September 14th, 2024. Make sure that you get registered now. We have a lot of lineup that you do not want to miss. This is going to be a phenomenal year this year. We have some outstanding people that's coming, and I'm not gonna say it yet. It's Hanshi Little out of Anderson, South Carolina. It's 201 East Reed Road, Anderson, South Carolina. Show up at September the 14th, 2014. Get registered. We don't have it available just yet, but we are working on getting a link so that you can get registered for the Circle of Masters. This is an annual event, and I'm telling you, you do not want to miss this year. We have got some awesome people coming, and it's going to be a fantastic year. And I want to say this too. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you're from, or whatever associate. This is a non-biased seminar and symposium. This is going to be for anyone and everyone that wants to come. And if you're passionate about Isshinryu, you don't want to miss this, because everyone's invited, non-association, nothing. It doesn't matter. You come and be a part of the Circle of Masters this year. We'd love to have you. And I'll see you there. And who knows, Isshinryu Today may be filming live. You never know. So we may can do some interviews. All right, let's get started with our program. And the first one I see, I'll let them go around and introduce themselves. Some people may know who you are, but I do you guys, I want you to understand that this is broadcasting on 4 different social media networks as we speak. So Twitch is one of them, YouTube is one of them, Facebook is one of them. I think Instagram is one of them, but it's going out live on 4 different social media networks. I got in touch with Twitch because I want to reach some of our younger generation students so that they can learn the history of our system. And that's why we do the show. So we'll start off in the top corner up here with Jesus Jimenez, and then we'll move over. Each one of them will get a chance to introduce themselves, and then we'll get talking about our material that we have planned for this evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jesus Jimenez. I'm from the Sun Tzu Dojo in Puerto Rico, and from the Isshinryu Kasaku here. Ronnie.
Ronnie Cimarosi from Elkin, Maryland, also from the Isshinryu Kazoku. Thanks for having us.
Anchi. Anchi Phil Little is sitting there in the scenes. We have him in attendance, and that is my sensei. I'm very proud to say that is my sensei. So we have him joining us this evening as well. Next is Frank.
How you doing, gentlemen? Everybody out there? Frank Black from Smithtown, New York, president of Essence of Isshinryu, and proud student of.
Wait a minute. Back up. Proud student of.
It's on your phone. Did you send her?
Frank, do yours again.
No, I said Frank Black from Smithtown, New York, president of Essence of Isshinryu, and a proud Grandmaster Ed McGrath.
Yeah.
Neil.
Hi, my name is Neil Simpson, live in Navarre, Florida, student of Mr. Harold Long, and board member of the USIKA.
And Hanchi Mady.
Hello, Albert Mady from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Our organization called IKI. We're in country now, and of course, with American Isshinryu as well. And we're just doing our thing. And tomorrow we're off to Thunder Bay, Canada, to host our Isshinryu Expo. We had about 200, 300 people coming out, and we have black belt grading. So we're pretty busy. Home for 4 days after that, off to the Middle East, and spend a month there, teach at our dojo there, and go on tours with my wife.
Outstanding. Well, first off, I want to thank all you gentlemen for joining us this evening. What a wealth of knowledge that we have. So, Jesus, I'm going to start off with you, buddy. We're going to start off with the Isshinryu codes, the codes of Isshinryu, the 8 codes of Isshinryu. And he asked me if he could start it off because he's going to explain something first.
Well, first of all, I think that we have to go to understand what means Kempo Gokui. The Kempo Gokui is the code of general precepts of Grandmaster Shimabukuro, and also from Grandmaster Shogun Miyagi. And Kempo means the way of the fist, and is related to the style of Quan Fa in China. And Gokui means the secret technique that the master shows to the most trust student. So when we go to those words of Kempo Gokui, that means that this was special for our masters. So saying that, we can start whenever you say.
Okay. So code 1, a person's heart is the same as heaven, is like heaven and earth. We'll just go right down the line and just see how that has affected your life. What's your thoughts on it? And we'll make this as, we'll try to get through all 8. If we don't, then we'll do another show. But we'll start with that one. A person's heart is like heaven and earth. Can I borrow this?
Yes. That's the surprise.
Well, that I believe that this first code involve the yin and yang of everything is part good, bad, but nothing is complete good and bad. And you have to practice your techniques. You have to, if you are going to relate it to martial arts, you have to relate it that the only way you go from one place to the other is by practicing. And vice versa. If you don't practice, you go to the other side. So the heart is here in Puerto Rico. We say, if you're a fighter, you have it in your heart. It's because you have a good heart to be a fighter. And maybe Hanshimari understand that because he's a fighter and he knows that, and he don't quit. And if we go to the Kempo Gokui of Goju-ryu, it doesn't say heart. It says mind. So Shimabukuro changed it for heart. So that means he was a fighter. In Kempo Gokui of Goju-ryu, they were more thinking in the precepts and not in the fighting. And that's my interpretation of the first code.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump on that one? The round table?
Yeah. For me, I had a little different perspective. I look at the heart of the body as my core. Not only does it keep my body functioning, but also having the heart and the confidence to be able to defend myself or defend others. I also look at it as heaven is our center, and the earth is the center of the universe, as the heart is the center of our body. So I kind of relate the 3 stars, the mind, the body, and the spirit, as we interpret them. The mind knows what it needs to do to defend itself. It knows the techniques. The mind tells the body what to do, and then the spirit is what makes it work. The spirit is our center.
Outstanding.
That's my interpretation.
All right. Anybody else?
Well, to
Yeah, I'd
me,
like to.
oh,
Go ahead, sir. No, absolutely, you, sir.
thank you. Basically, to me, it means that we're all the same. The heart is same as heaven and earth. In today's society and in the world, there's a lot of separation by religion, by color, by ethnic backgrounds, and so on. And to me, especially what's going on, being Mideastern and so on, to me, it just means, hey, people got to wake up and say, hey, we're all the same, no matter what.
True. So polarized now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means to me. And it's got nothing to do with politics. There's separation of politics these days, whether in Canada and the United States. So, families get upset with each other because of who they want to follow in politics. And, that's personally, I think it's ridiculous, but it's unfortunate. So, it's teaching us a lesson in Precept 1 that, we are all the same. The heart, the heaven, the earth, we're all together, physical, mental, spiritual, it all combines, as you said, the yin yang, one can't exist without the other. And in this world, we can't exist without everybody else, really. That's how I look at it anyway.
That's right.
Well, you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. I agree with Grandmaster Mady 100%, but there's no place for politics
True.
in what we do.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in our line of work.
Yep. 100%.
Neil, I think he was on.
Yeah. Thank you. The idea behind it, to me, like it was pointed out, there's 2 different versions of it that go out. One is mind and one is body, but they both are different translations of the same idea, that the person as a whole is made of the same things as heaven and earth. And so the idea behind it is that we pretty much have what exists, right? And that's what we have to deal with. So the point is, that one being the first, the introductory thing that you're trying to teach someone is, you may have what you want to happen, you may have what you think will happen, but what you have to do when you're fighting is deal with reality, deal with right now. Set that up, change what you have to, balancing the yin and the yang are two different sides of it. You know, how do you, balancing the hard and the soft, do you parry, do you go in hard with the block, all of those things. But whatever you do, you have to deal with what you have now. And it kind of harkens back to other Chinese ideals and idioms that this one's pointing toward, to say that. Basically, that you as a human being are made of the same things as heaven and earth, right? This is all we've got to deal with, right? There's not some other thing that you're made out of. You're made off the same stuff as this is. So deal with that, deal with reality, and then you'll be able to handle the situation.
And we have to deal with our students. We have to help them to discover who they are and what they can become. So that's the hard part of the sensei, to show the students the way how they can discover that they don't have limits, and to show them that nobody can limit them, and that's very difficult. That's very difficult.
Back to the code.
Okay. Well,
Can I point something out about the title real quick?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
This is y'all
So
show.
the Kempo Gokui and the Kempo Haku is what you'll see it referred to, right? Both things. We're pretty much the only ones who refer to it as the Kempo Gokui. But over on the side of, not ours that Shimabuku Sensei had, but on a lot of the other ones that you'll see that Higoseko did, that Miyagi Chojun handed out, things like that, you'll see over on the side, and it says these 8 phrases are the key to the martial arts, right? And so the first part of it is the 8 phrases, which is the Kempo Haku, these 8 poems, right? And then the later part of it is where they say the Kempo Haku. So it depends on how you look at it. So it's just, they're just named it after the thing over on the side. And the idea behind Gokui, like Sensei Jimenez pointed out, was they're not secrets, like there's something that we hide away, right? That we stow away. It's like everybody's seen it, right? You go up to somebody and you go, I'm punching the same way that you do. Why does yours hurt so much more, right? And then you can go, well, and then you can say, well, I'm grounded when I do it. I look at you and you're not doing this, right? So it's the little details, right? Those basic fundamental points that are the secret sauce between you and somebody else who's been doing it. And your average student won't get those, but your long-term students will. And then you can go through and you can teach them, and they'll be able to find those things and see them and develop them. So it's in that kind of vein that it's a secret. It's the fundamentals, the fundamental secrets on there that a lot of people just don't spend enough time in it to get.
Yeah. Shimabuku's mentality, if you think about it, very simplistic. He was a fighter by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Look at most of the codes. He was a fighter. A person's imbalance is the same as weight. The body should be able to change position at any time. He was a fighter by nature, and I think he based a lot of his code on that.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I picked up from the code, and then we'll move on to the second, is a person's heart is the same as heaven and earth. In heaven, it is unlimited, and in earth, there's limitations. As it depicts the characteristics of man. What makes man the strongest being in the universe is the fact that we are able to communicate. We're able to communicate and learn different languages. We're able to communicate with our body style. We're able to communicate by listening, writing, and different things. We can even communicate to animals. But what makes us the weakest being in the universe is how we do that communication, the fact that we can communicate. So understanding that concept of what makes us the strongest is communication, but that's also what makes us the weakest. So understanding that going into the system and going into our training is very important on how we communicate things to ourselves, but more importantly, how we communicate other things to others. So just a good something to think about in the perspective of what I got from everyone's discussion on that. That was a good one. Let's move on to the second one. The blood circulating is almost the same as as the moon and the sun. The blood circulating is almost the same as the moon and the sun. Anybody want to take that one?
I know for me, everything runs in cycles. For example, the moon cycles around the earth and the blood cycles through the body. Just like in the dojo, you have the white belt that cycles through the transition up through the Q ranks and in the black belt. And then really once you made it to a higher level, you're really kind of back to practicing your basics all over again. So that's my interpretation of that code, that everything just kind of runs in cycles. Everything in life as is everything in the dojo.
If you go to Mother Nature, everything in Mother Nature is round. It's not square. And that's one of the most strongest figures that you can find. But also, I think it goes deeper in everything. It brings up to us that by practicing martial arts, you have also to have knowledge of your body and your health. And you have to take care of that simple circulatory rhythm, because if you go with high blood pressure, you are going to have problems. If you start losing blood, you're interrupting your circulatory rhythm, and that will bring you problems. If we go to a more basic concept, then we have the techniques. We have the sanction circular block, and you have there the moon and the sun rhythm. And it's not an exercise kata, it's a martial technique there involved. And I think that we are missing things in our system. And when I say that, I relate it to why this helped me in my circulatory rhythm. I had a sensei whose name was Kim Owo, and he told me that when he was in Okinawa for 14 years, and he told me that in every class there was a doctor there, and because that was very important for the doctor and for the sensei to be aware of the health of the students. So that means that we are physical, mental, and spiritual. So that means that we have to be aware of our physical thing. That's my interpretation of that second code.
Let me add something here. May I?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
It says plain and simple, as a person should always remain in motion and circulate. Let me give you an example. Tony Williams, a BJ Fry, as a result, in facing this obstacle, he will bend but never break. But I'll tell you, these two types of fellows that have understood this kind of a breaking point, I can tell you, they can teach us a lot. And all you have to do is watch. And when you're out there as a judge, and when you're out there as a person who's really looking over this kind of competition that these people bring to us, if you can't learn from that yourself, you're an idiot. And that's what I place. I love being in the middle. I like doing it. I like being involved. I don't care if I'm on a corner or I don't care. But these folks bring so much to the table that people can learn from, is what I'm saying.
Constantly moving.
Motion circulation, the obstacles they have to deal with, and they're masters at it. And I'm talking. I'll bring Tony Williams as a front runner in this whole organization that we all have. We it doesn't have to be ours or yours or us. It's really a thing that we need to really concentrate on, and people need to build from that. And I know Albert Mady sitting right up there right now. He's got people that we don't know who they are, but they're good, and I know they're good because he's great.
Thank you, sir. Uh,
Okay. Anyone else on that?
yeah, you know, the blood circulating is similar to the moon and the sun. You know, without the moon and the sun, we wouldn't really have the earth. We wouldn't have everything growing the way, way it does on earth. Look what happened when we had the eclipse recently. Birds all stopped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go to sleep, right? It's all related. Like animals stopped. Some went to sleep. People, well, we're different. This type of animal. We're out there trying to look at it and go blind, But what Grandmaster Little was talking about, you have to keep moving. I tell people that have joined my club, and we have some older students and so on, and they say, well, I haven't really done much, and this hurts and that hurts. Well, you know why it hurts? You stop moving. I've got, because of all the fights, the various fights I've done, and my students and competing and traveling with them, I got aches and pains. Okay. I won't tell my joke, but maybe I will. I wake up with pain every morning and she won't leave. But no.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
But we know why.
Yeah. She's not here right now. She's not here right now.
She's not watching.
I hope not. I hope you don't send her the recording. Yeah.
Oh,
but
okay. For the right amount of money, we'll talk.
So, I tell them, I mean, even myself, I had a great workout tonight. I taught a kickboxing class and I rushed home for this. And if I miss some time training, my body aches more.
Keep moving.
You got to keep moving. I tell people, if you stop moving and you just sit there, you're really going to go stagnant. You're going to seize up. And if you seize up for too long, guess what? You're going to die.
What's that old saying? A body in motion stays in motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So, and so that it's very important. You got to keep moving. Grandmaster Little touched upon that, and absolutely. And I keep everybody moving, motivating, and I think that's part of it. The motivation, keep them going. Whether it's martial arts or in life, we just got to keep that circulation going, and that's my take on it.
You got to lead by example, right?
I try.
You do. You stay by trying to do the same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Can I interject here? Last night at class, I'll tell you, I was on the floor moving more than I'd ever done in a long time with a lot of different people. Here's what I'm going to tell you about that. Today, and my work ethic, I was unstoppable. I mean, I went from daylight till almost right now. I'm telling you. And I talked to my wife about this too. And it's we've got to do this. We got to get on the floor and be there for these people, because this is what they need to see.
Yes, definitely.
Mr. Lawson, Master Stu, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not blowing my own horn, because God knows whatever they saw, it's a but anyway, That's I believe that 100%.
I know me for one. I feel guilty if I'm not in the dojo.
Oh, Albert Mady does that. I know a lot of people out there get on the floor with their people and really, really train. Really train. Now, do they have to do it every night? No.
No.
But there's times that they need to see you. They've got to see you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Neil, I think he was going to say something.
I was going to say along the same lines everybody just said. Mr. Long said, Master Shimabuku used to say, if you stop doing karate, you die. You know, it's that saying, you stop moving, you stop being active, you stop doing what you do, what you love, what you've been part of. And I think that's the very basic principle that this is hitting toward is like one thing affects the other. Nothing's isolated, you know, whether it's, you know, making someone do something that you need to take an opponent out, to big life concepts like a gentleman mentioned. So.
All right. Anybody got any more? Ronnie, this is a good time for you to talk about what we had talked about before the show earlier today about we all got our concepts and our principles. And Ronnie's got a great story about his sensei that I found very intriguing. And he sent me a list of some things that are maybe a little bit different, but this is the perfect one to bring it in because this is a clear example of how his sensei kept things in motion. So, Ronnie, if you don't mind, sir, could you
Oh,
share?
sure.
I'm talking.
I came up under Grandmaster Toby Cooling, and we had the highest respect for Master Shimabuku's 8 codes, but Master Cooling came up with his own codes. He had 12 codes that we pretty much lived by every day, and even to the point to where in my own household, one of the codes will be thrown up at me if I didn't follow it. What sticks in my mind is one time I accused my daughter of something, and code is don't reach a conclusion without all the facts. And she goes, "Dad, you broke your own code. You reached a conclusion. You didn't have all the facts." So she put that right back on me. But every day in our life, one of the 12 codes affected us, and we used them in the dojo, and we used them outside the dojo in everyday life, as you could the 8 codes from Master Shimabuku. I'll be glad to go down real quick without going into any detail, but number 1 is a karateka is fierce in battle and gentle in life. Number 2, things aren't always as they seem. Number 3, don't always act in the expected manner. Just to go back to number 2, I know I said I wouldn't talk about it. Things aren't always
Nothing is until it is.
A lot of codes that Grandmaster Cooling got, this one in particular, he got from the old Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. And there was a cartoon where Calvin saw the shadow of this big tiger and was all scared. And then the next frame, it showed it was his little pet cat. So and it said at the bottom, things aren't always as they seem. So he incorporated that in there. Number 4, don't reach a conclusion without all the facts. Number 5, everything is relative. Number 6, opposites appear the same. My perfect example I use with my student on that is number 6 and number 9. They're really the same number. One's upside down and one's not. Number 7, don't block an offensive move until necessary. Number 8, separate important from unimportant. Number 9, nothing is until it is. Number 10, which I use a lot, you can't prevent the wind from blowing, but maybe you can redirect your sails to make it work for you. Number 11, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And number 12 was a cowboy code. He was a big Louis L'Amour fan. And the cowboy code was, if it wasn't yours, don't touch it. If it's not true, don't say it. And if it's not right, don't do it. So we've incorporated those in our everyday life, and there's not a day that goes by that one of those codes doesn't come to mind in a situation. And that all comes from the dojo.
Excellent.
Outstanding.
Well, I just want to say, like, when Master Cooling passed away, a lot of us were on that last podcast with him, and that night he passed away. If you remember that,
Yeah.
we're a lot of us were last to see him, on a podcast. That was he had a. I remember when I got my Rokudan, I was kind of a young Rokudan, and he saw me down in Tennessee, and he took me aside. He says, when you were a Godan, you were top of the heap of all the black belts. Now you're a Rokudan. Now you're back at the bottom compared to all those other ones with the red and whites. Then he says, don't ever let it go to your head. Be real. Me and you walk into a coffee shop with our red and whites. It couldn't buy us a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And I've always, thought about that. So, all of us are going to make an impact on our students and other people, and that these codes we kind of live by, and by doing that, we make a good impact on many people. Grandmaster Phil Little. I mean, he at the down in Florida, when I went down there, he asked me to come out, and I got an award down there, and and people like that have I've got a lot of respect for, because they don't care what association you belong with. They look at you as a martial artist. And with our system called Isshin, one way, right? We're all one, right? And that's codes. It's all one, right? And more people have to understand that.
Absolutely.
Good comment.
Okay. Anybody else got anything on that code? All right. Moving on to the next one, which is a good one. The manner of drinking and spitting is either hard or soft. This is a good one. And it really applies to a lot of things, not only inside the dojo, but also outside the dojo, is how we conduct ourselves in different situations that we may come across. This code here clearly is, I would say, probably one of our stronghold codes, in my opinion, because how we approach things and how we handle things, you have to have a mixture of both, in my opinion. You have to stand up for the rights of your standards. And these are our 8 standards, and we have to stand up to the rights of those, but we have to stand up to those in a professional manner, and in a manner to where they're accepted, not intimidated or rejected. And sometimes that can be hard outside the dojo because of society, especially when we have to change with the way society has changed. But the code stays the same. So we have to live by those. So I'll let you guys talk on that a little bit more. But the manner of drinking and spitting is either hard or soft.
Well, it represents the yin yang, of course, a balance in life. Whether we're in the dojo, whether we're out on the street, we have to have that balance. One can't really exist without the other. For example, when we're talking about in society, for example, I was a bouncer in biker bars for years. There were times where I had to fight, and there were times where it was smarter to try and talk them down. You've got to have that balance. You have to know how to act and react. And I think the martial arts, Isshinryu, which is a hard, soft system, taught me that, hard, soft, physically, right? Mentally and emotionally. So balance. You got to have the balance.
Absolutely.
And also put the idea or bring the idea that you have to take what it really matters to you, what is good to you, and what is not good to you, to throw it away. It shows you how to treat people. If they are good, if there are people that are very legitimate with you, you embrace them. If there are people that like to stab you on the back, you spit your spirit and take it out of your life. So, and that's the way I see it. It's a very deep code, not only in fighting, but also in the way you are going to behave in life. It's a very deep one. I like it a lot, but just for that perspective.
I this way. A person's unbalances claims of weight. A lot of times it's psychological. Because, we're all trying to do best, but at times people have unbalances in their mindset, and it creates a problem for them to be at their best. And that's what we have to work at.
Yeah.
All I have to say about that.
Okay, awesome. Anyone else? How about Frank sitting there laid back? Frank, are you awake?
I am awake. It's still a little pain, Kyle, but I'm getting better.
Well, I really pinpointed you for a reason, because this code, when I see this code, I think of, in the past month or so, it touched my heart that my brother's down. He's out. He's hurt. He had to have surgery, and that's hard in his life. But when he calls me, he is so, look, I got chills thinking about it. But he's soft in temperament, and he's determined in his execution. I'm going to get up and walk. He should not be walking at this current time. Should not. He should not. After the surgery he had done, that was a hard thing in his life, and it was something that happened. It was a complete accident, and he got injured. He was taken out of the grid. He had two choices. Like Hanshi Mady has said before on my show, you got two choices. You can live or die. You want to survive, you got to fight. Frank Black is a fighter. He was determined. I think he goes back to work next week. It blows my mind, but he's so humble about it. So that soft and hard, that determination of having that grit to get back up after a surgery like that, sir, I got to say,
Thanks.
you are a true statement.
I ruptured my quadriceps tendon and had to have it reattached. And anybody knows anything about the surgery, you have dead leg. So the only way that you would, get it back, or, I told my surgeon, I need to kick again. And he's like, the only way to do that is to have surgery. Otherwise, you're going to be gimpy for the rest of your life. So, but I think it was that Isshinryu spirit that kind of pulled me through. So I'm lucky in that regard. But yeah, you got to push. And again, right back to a body in motion stays in motion.
Yeah.
And
One step at a time.
I think Isshinryu's given us all that warrior mentality of no quit, no surrender, and keep pushing.
Absolutely.
When I was suffering through the COVID thing, there was just no quit, and that all came from the dojo.
Yeah,
I was all instilled into us.
Kyle, I'm sorry, Ronnie, sorry to interrupt, but maybe you may or may not know, Mr. McGrath had cancer of the esophagus, and going through that, I guess he had pulled all the tubes out of his body and out of his neck. They had to put him in a medically induced coma for 3 months. So after the coma, when they pulled him out of it, he had to learn how to walk again. And I do remember, going to see him at the VA, and I just saw that Isshinryu spirit, that don't quit, don't die. And he came back full bore. And again, it was that Isshinryu spirit, that Marine Corps spirit that he had. And he was a great example. And I know, the rest of the guys can say the same about their teacher, that they led by example. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely.
Well, too many people give up on themselves. And I think as martial artists, they've been at it, this is my 56th year. A lot of you have been in it longer, some less, but we've been at it a long time. My first year in high school wrestling, I was 15. I fractured my spine. I bridged too hard, popped the guy up, and I broke L4 and L5, your weight-bearing discs. They told me unless I had surgery, like have a fusion, I'd never wrestle again. I'd never do karate again. I'd never weight train again.
Oh my.
And I called my uncle, who was a surgeon, and he was a battlefield surgeon in Jordan, and he studied at Cambridge University in England, and so on. So sent him my X-rays, and he says, "No, if you get that surgery and have it fused, you won't do those things." I don't advise it, but I wrestled 2 weeks later in Southwestern Ontario Championships, and and everything. When they told me I'd never do this again, everything else is history. I fought, everything.
Repercussions at all, or what?
What's that?
No repercussions at all from that injury?
No. Well, for a long time, it hurt.
I can imagine.
My disc would slip. I'd go to a chiropractor. I got acupuncture. I worked the core. I wasn't going to let it beat me. Listen, there were times if I sneezed hard and jerked, I'm going, oh my God, it would knock me down.
Right.
Okay. It hurt for many years, but I wasn't going to, I could have just sat back and said, oh, screw it. I'm not going to do anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'd probably be in worse shape. I might not be here right now.
Right.
So that spirit that we have from martial arts training really takes us a long way and through hardships and so on. You're talking about COVID. A lot of us, I had a hard time. I was teaching in Germany when it hit. I got home 2 days before they closed the airports, and my business is gone. My livelihood is absolutely gone. But guess what? Came back strong. That's what we do as martial artists. That's what these codes do for us, because that's a code of life to us. And so Master Black, there, I'm glad you're moving and keep moving. And before you know it, you're going to kick somebody's face off.
Yep.
That's how you have to think. Otherwise, you're giving up. Don't give up. We can't give up. No way. No way.
So
Neil, do you have anything on this one? I know you've been waiting in the air because this is a good one for you. I can't hear you. I think your audio is
No
on.
worries. No, we're still on the third one. Is that correct? Or we moved on to number 4? I wanted to make sure. We're still on number 3, correct?
Yes.
Okay. No, I agree with what everyone said on it. At its root, it's talking about breath. The matter of drinking and spitting is inhalation and exhalation, is either hard or soft. And in the beginning, that's what we teach, right? That's how we teach people to work with it. That's how we teach people to you can't fight if you can't breathe, right? So that's one of the fundamentals that we do is breath. But part of that isn't just breathing; it's control of yourself. As you begin to breathe, why are you trying to breathe? Well, because I'm learning to control myself, right? And so then as we get up higher in our martial arts journeys, that's when we start interpreting it like pretty much everyone here has so far, which even though at its heart, it's maybe about breath, later on, the lesson that you really learn about it is how to control yourself in these situations, whether it's fighting, whether it's life, whether it's perseverance. What do I have to do? When Mr. Long used to call it hunkering down. So when you broke your back, what did you do? You hunkered down. When you messed your quad up, what'd you do? You hunkered down. And so you take a deep breath. You decide, okay, is this the time where I get hard, or is this the time where I soften things up a little bit? That's life lessons if I've ever heard them.
All right. Moving on to the next code. A person's unbalance is the same as a weight.
Okay, so we catch a lot of flack for this one because we're kind of the only ones who interpret it who translate it in that way. And the others will look at it and they mean the characters. Even the last character on ours is different than some of the others. It sounds the same, which is why it's the way it is because somebody somewhere along the line wrote down what they had heard, but they used the wrong character, but tried to keep the same meaning. Okay. So it's Be is the last character on it, regardless of which one it is. Right. So it means to meet and separate, or is the same as to step back and advance. Right. That's how a lot of them will just translate it. They'll leave it off that. And then the last one means something like weight, but it's like a weight like you're measuring. Like when you would go somewhere to a shop and they would measure it to go see how much it cost or something like that. So they're looking at that thinking, okay, well, we've got weight at the end of it, right? So that doesn't make much sense. So how the translator that Shomoku Sensei chose to kind of work that out was, a person's imbalance is the same as his weight, right? Well, the other one at the very end of it, that same word at the end of it that they used weight that sounds the same means something completely different. It means horse.
Oh.
And they're like,
Oh,
what
wow.
does that mean? What are they trying to get at with it, right? But what they're trying to get with it is because a lot of times the actual order of the letters really doesn't make much difference, right? What they're trying to get at is if you look at my hanchi, right? When you're riding a horse, what do you have to do? Like if you're galloping, like your upper body is going to be still, right? Your lower body may be doing whatever it has to do, but your upper body is still, or vice versa, right? If you have to maneuver on a horse, right? Because these were all like poems to teach battle, right? I mean, it was first a military manual before it got passed on in various forms to the Okinawans, some of whom were military people, right? So if they gripped the horse with their lower half, then their upper half, if they were moving, had to be supple, right? So what it was talking about was the balancing of when to separate your top and bottom and when to bring them back together, right? How to move, how to keep, there's a time to keep your upper half moving and your lower half more stable. Then there's another time where, hey, I may have to be more stable up here on my upper half, but keep my lower half doing something. So how do I do that? How do I go back and forth with it? So knowing that is what it literally said, you can see where we have a person's imbalance is the same as his weight, right? We're trying to get that same concept across with a letter that's different at the very end, right? That sounds the same. So like, okay, well, how do we do that? What's the concept? And it's that, that at a very fundamental level, it's, your upper half and your lower half are going to have to do different things sometimes, but then you're going to have to be able to bring them back together at the moment of impact. That way you're rooted to the ground, right? Which Chinkuchi, right? So it's like, how do we go through and how do we do it? So you can see this is a really deep concept, that has really little stuff, but then you can see where the Gokui comes in. Like, okay, how do I teach this really deep concept to somebody? Well, it'll be a little bit before you figure it out. This is something that you're going to have to work on for a long time. And it's one of those things like what we talked about in the beginning. This is what makes the difference between an expert who can do that, who can switch back and forth, who can lock it in when he needs to and really ground himself and root himself and lay it to somebody. And then somebody who's going to sit there and they'll swing really hard, but there's nothing behind it. There's no weight behind it, so. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. So.
That is very
Yeah,
fascinating.
very interesting.
Interesting. Yep.
Anyone else?
Kyle, you know what I think we all caught hell from our teachers over the years as far as balance. How many times do you balance? You're leaning forward. You're leaning back. You're not upright. And that was, I think, hammered into all of us. I think all of us can agree on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. And one thing that like Master Simpson just tied in completely is even with this code, he tied in all the other codes before and all the other codes after into the center. It's funny that this code is located in the center of our Gokui. If you look at it, it's dead center, and it implies the top half and the bottom half all together working as one, which is what we really wanted to bring together for tonight's show. But the bottom half of the codes has to have this code to exist. The top half of the codes have to have this code to exist, and it's located directly in the center. So I find that very interesting that you brought that to the table about the horse, because yes, there's a lot going on. If you've ever rode a horse or seen someone ride a horse, those little jockeys have got that down to a science. And when I see those little guys, I think of Albert Mady. He will kick your ass, even though he's so little. He stays on that horse. You know what I'm saying? And so that he knew I was going to get a joke in there every now and then. I have to get a joke in there about it. But seriously, when you watch, I've had the honor of seeing Hanshi Little move, Hanshi Mady move. I've had the honor of seeing them move. And they're so similar, but yet different because of their height difference, their weight difference, but the product is still the same. And to me, I thought that was fascinating. And you know, I asked Conchi Little one time, and he's on here. He can testify to this. He teaches a class to where you look, and I think Neil's probably been in it too. But he'll take his finger and point like a laser beam, completely 360 degrees, and everything stays at same level of balance. When you're moving in kata, that is so crucial. Or when you're moving in a fight,
yeah.
that is so crucial. And it was probably one of the best lessons that I remember, and it stuck with me. But using that laser beam just all the way around as you completely turn, it depicts everything that we're doing. So I just had to throw that on there, and
Yeah,
I know
good
he's
call.
listening. So. Anyone else on this code? Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on to code number 5. I might have to put my light up so I can see. The body should be able to change directions at any time.
Yeah.
Now that's a good one, in my opinion, because the way society had changed on us so quick, we had to change directions. We wasn't able to go to our dojos and train no more. We wasn't able to have a general assembly of people to where we could train. We had to rely on other resources. We had to change directions really quick. So using that as a direction in today's society, it was a bad thing that happened, but what a phenomenal thing that we got from it. You know what I'm saying? So us changing directions, and I'll just use that as the lead point there, and I'll let you guys run with this one because this is a good one. The body should be able to change directions at any time.
I think I really believe that this code is very related to strategy. You have to establish a strategy in life. It can be at your work. It can be in fighting. It can be in whatever. And you have to be able to change. But if we go to the basic, if we go to karate, it shows that you have to understand the different angles, and it's very related to the prior code.
I was just thinking that.
Because when you broke the balance of the person, he's not going to be able to hit you hard. But if you are out of balance, you are not going to be able also to hit him hard. So they are related. Your strategy has to be you have to have in mind your opponent. And we sometimes we forget about that. We forget about to tell our students how they have to establish a strategy. How we forget about to show them how to break the balance of the opponent. And you know, I like that because that code, because I start my students showing them the 8 directions in that you're able to break the balance.
Phenomenal.
Great
If
analogy.
if you don't show them that, then everything is you're losing your time.
You know, one of the things towards the end of his life that Grandmaster Toby Cooling was really involved in was the China and the joint manipulation things. And the one thing that sticks in my mind, it kind of goes along with what Hanchi Jimenez was just saying, is he would always say, change the direction of the attack. For example, different people have different tolerances of pain. Hanchi Kurt Klein, you can pretty much put him in any kind of wrist lock and he sits there and looks at you. On me, you just think about it and I'm down on the floor. So knowing that people have different tolerances of pain, he would always say, okay, when the person's not reacting, then sometimes you have to change that angle of attack to get that reaction. And that not only applies from a physical perspective, but also from a mental perspective and a communication perspective.
Outstanding. Anyone else?
Well, it brings me to last time I competed in a full contact championship. I trained. I'm a fight lightweight. I used to fight lightweight, and I got down. I didn't have a proper scale. In bare knuckle full contact, lightweight is 154 and under. I came in at 149 that day. I didn't have a proper scale. I would have tried to stay around, the 152, 53. But for some reason, I was up in Rochester, New York, at Kyokushin North American Championships, and the different sensei wouldn't let their fighters fight me. I'm going, like, I'm 44 now, I'm here, I trained, I registered, I want to fight. So I ended up fighting heavyweights. First guy comes out, he's 6'6". I'm going, dang, I can't kick him in the face. So
You came up to his waist.
exactly, So I beat the heck out of his legs. But I changed direction. I changed. Okay, you have to, as martial artists in combat, we have to change direction. If we have tunnel vision and we say this is just the way we're going to do it, it may not work that way. So, I mean, there's obstacles in life, and we have to be able to change and move and kind of go with the flow. All right. So with that competition, I ended up winning the North American title. I fought 2 heavyweights that day. The second guy was much shorter, but stocky and harder to move. He was harder to fight. So the strategy had to change. You can't, in life, we have to move and change our strategy just to get by every day, and that's what I had to do to win those fights. That's just the way I move in life. I have to change my direction. All of us, like you said earlier, when COVID hit us, we had to find another way to stay in the game. I started doing videos in my driveway. People say, why, you're putting all this stuff up and you're doing it for free. So what? But you know what? It kept me here, kept me
That's right.
on track. I needed to motivate myself and motivate everybody else out there to get off their butts and get the circulation going, and go back to one of the other codes. But that direction changed. All of a sudden, I can't be in my dojo. I can't be teaching physically, hundreds of people. So I went another route. So I think the martial arts training helped me with that and be able to, cope with things that happen in life.
Great enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't drink Wawa coffee or Puerto Rican coffee. He's got his. I got my cold brew right here.
I love it.
Good thing.
That's a cheap plug.
Remember code number 3.
Uh-huh.
The minor drinking and speeding. Remember that.
Good one.
I think, Ronnie, the matter of eating or spitting when you drink that Puerto Rican coffee.
There-
That's what I do with low coffee.
Hey guys, you know what? We have to have fun in life.
That's right. Gotta laugh.
Yeah, that's, as soon as you stop having fun in life, it's not really worth it. I gotta enjoy what I'm doing.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Moving to the next code. Time to strike is when opportunity presents
Oh,
itself.
Yeah.
no. We're not going to move yet.
Okay, yes,
Okay,
sir.
we'll stay right here. That's
I've been hearing about the person's balance, but I hadn't heard a lot about unbalance.
Mm.
The unbalance is the same as weight. And I'll be honest with you. This is something that's really critical. And we all need to take a look at that, because unbalance is not necessarily just in their physical being.
Ah, yes.
Because unbalance is the same as weight. And I'll tell you what went on before they got there, what went on during all. These people have got to be able to reestablish themselves, and if they're really a competitor, really a fighter, And those of you who have trained them, you know this already. This is nothing new to you. But the weight that we bear, all of us, is psychological.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
We all have. Now, I don't know anybody on this phone that's not trained. I don't know anybody on this phone that's not exceptionally good at teaching and competing, whatever they wanted to do. But that unbalance there comes from within, and that's the fight that we all fight.
Agreed. Yes,
I'm
sir.
done. I'm done. Next.
That was excellent, sir. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Nothing to say after that.
That said it all, isn't it? That
Yes.
was outstanding. Thank you for sharing, Hanshi. Thank you so much. Okay. Now I guess the time to strike is when opportunity presents itself.
That's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?
Fine.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Hell, I've got a lock I'd like to strike. You want to name them?
you,
Oh,
you know,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
and
Go ahead.
Master Nagel and Master McGrath were both counter fighters, and being a big guy, he said, "Listen, sometimes Frank, you got to dial it back a little bit." But it wasn't just in the fight; it's in life as well. And he had always told me, be patient, whether it was in my personal relationships or with my coworkers. He would always say, "Be patient. They'll fuck up. You just have to be patient." And he was right 100% of the times. Be patient, because it always did work out. Counter, relax, and the time will come when the opportunity presents itself. You'll know when to move. You'll know when to say the right thing. So certainly equate to the fight, and certainly our personal lives.
Well, sometimes well, if we're talking about fighting, like physical match or so on, we create those openings. Okay. Sometimes I'm the type of fighter, I just take it to you, whether you're a big guy, small guy, I blitz. But I still look for the openings, but I tell my fighters, create it. It's, make that opening. And then once you see it, you take it. How many times when we're all learning, and probably even to this day, you're out there sparring, and later you say, "Oh, man, I could have done that. I should have thrown that." Right? I don't know how many times that goes through your head.
Right.
But we got to get rid. How do we get rid of that coulda, shoulda, woulda? Training.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's it.
Practice.
I try to bestow into my students, especially when you're in there fighting against other skilled fighters, you can't rely on that 1-2 technique.
Mhm.
It's really about that fourth or fifth technique, sometimes depending on your opponent's ability. And it's all a strategy. I'm using my feet to set up my hands, or using my hands to set up my feet. Just don't think you're going to walk in there and throw a front kick and get a point off of it, or you're going to drop that guy with that one technique. It just ain't going to happen, especially against a skilled fighter. So I agree 100%.
And you can't be intimidated either. For example, I've told my fighters, and I've had to go against some champions and so on. And I said, don't worry about their belt, their credentials, their title. Respect that they got to where they're at. They became world champion because they worked really hard. But there's another reason why they're world champion, because they haven't fought you yet.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Wow.
Okay? By respecting their ability, your defenses will be in place. How many people get out there too cocky and get their asses whipped because they didn't respect it? That person has the ability. So you respect that they could take you out, your defenses will be much sharper, and you have a better chance of winning.
True.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Very good stuff. Anyone else?
Yeah, somebody else mentioned that being in that no man's land, you have to commit.
Mm.
The the direct translation of it is if when your hands enter the void, then strike, basically. And that's that no man's land. You know, if I'm back here, I'm okay. If I'm in here, I'm okay. But in that middle ground, you've not committed. You know, you've got to find that. Like, when do I get here? When do I be patient? You know, if it's time to be in, right? If it's time to be back and be patient, be patient. But you don't want to be in that middle ground where you're indecisive. You know, you're open to being struck by them, and it makes it that much more difficult for you.
Yeah,
So I thought that was really interesting.
And we have that in the katas. In the katas, we have gaps that we have to fill. We were talking about that, Master Forrest and I. We were talking about that. The kata shows you that you have a gap and you have to fill it, and that's what you're talking about, Master.
Absolutely. And what's amazing to me is, like, we've all tended to take a philosophical bent with it. Eventually, we start out with the physical, and then we take it philosophically, and that's the One Heart way. You know, you've made it wholehearted. You've made it part of who you are. And to anybody watching who's just starting out, like, take that to heart. And there's more to it than the physical actions that you're doing. You know, that's part of it, and you can't bypass it. Like, nobody. I mean, give me a break. You're fighting with a broken back. I mean, like, nobody here has bypassed the hard road to get where they are.
Right.
But you learn so much by taking that road. You know, that road that not everybody takes. So keep it up.
Anyone else? So here's an interesting fact on the time to strike is when opportunity presents itself, is understanding the time, the time, and the word opportunity. So, interesting fact, if you're teaching beginners, this is something that I always teach my guys, is 13. There's something about that number. So if you look at a clock system, it completes you 360 degrees. 12 plus 1 equals 13. 11 plus 2 equals 13. 10 plus 3 equals 13. So forth and so on, all the way around the clock system. Every product of that, 7 plus 6 equals 13. You know, if you just keep adding those numbers around the clock system, you find yourself being able to defend yourself 360 degrees as long as you stayed centered of that clock system. So understanding that, if you draw that out on a clock, it's very interesting. And I find it very interesting in our first kata at Saison. So, 13. That's very intriguing whenever you're teaching that to the students. Now, there's a lot of spaces in between 12 and 1 and 1 and 2. Those have to be covered as well. Those are filling in the gaps, as Chief Jimenez was saying. So understanding that is very crucial, and I think the opportunity and the time correlate together in this sequence. So just wanted to bring that out as my thing on that aspect.
Good point.
All right. Anyone moving on to the next one, I guess. We're getting close, guys. We're getting close. The eye must see all sides. Now, my question here. Go ahead.
No, we got to back up.
Okay, let's back up.
Yes, sir.
Put it in reverse.
Always examine the opponent and attempt to locate his weakness. Well, that's the last word you need to. That's the only word you need to remember. Finding his weakness, attack that point. Well, anybody and everybody can sit here tonight and say, well, okay, well, that's good. That's well and good. But the bottom line is, you already know their weakness. If you're attacking a person, you already know what the weakness is. If you don't need to be attacking them.
Yes, sir.
And, whether it's on paper or anywhere else, logistics, physically, study them. That's all I'm saying.
Hunty, that's a great point. One of the
Means-
things I tell my students from a tournament perspective is if you're lucky enough not to be in the first fight, that's your opportunity to sit back and watch what the other fighters are doing, because most of the times they're going to throw their best techniques first. So if this guy's a kicker, you'll know he's a kicker before you get in there, and use that to your advantage. Know your fighter. I love that.
You know, I tell a lot of the students too, don't worry about somebody's speed, because the opportunity, we'll go back to the opportunity strike. Well, you can beat somebody faster than you if you know when to hit. Timing is everything. Timing is the utmost. That's very, very, very important.
Timing is speed, isn't it?
Well, it's striking at the right time. Like you might be able to throw back just faster than me, but I know when to, when to strike. That's very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we're safe to move on to the next one. The eye must see all sides.
I think this is more a personal awareness thing. That you have to be, when you go into a room, you have to see everything that is in that room, everything that is surrounding you. Even as Master Cimarosi told you a few minutes ago, that when you're in a tournament, that you see your opponents fighting or the people who are fighting, that's what you have to be checking everything. Even the slightest movement, you have to be aware of it. Sometimes even look in the eyes of the person, you know that somebody's going to attack you or doing something to you in your back. So I think it's more than a personal awareness thing.
To give Hanshi Jimenez a couple kudos, I came in here one weekend and I spent the whole day cleaning the dojo, and I took a bunch of pictures. And in every picture, I had a little Wawa cup way back in the distance, and he spotted it in every one. So his eyes noticed the slightest change.
You know that it's because I hate that thing so much that I see it with my
Anyone else on that one?
Well,
I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I must see all sides. It's important. Again, you go back to your awareness. You have to be aware of your surroundings. Say you're on the job. Say you're in law enforcement. You got to be aware. Handling security. You've got to be aware. You got to be aware of things that are happening, things that could happen. And my days when I bounced in those biker bars, thank God I had the training. And I came close to getting hit with things. I did get stabbed in the arm, but a lot of things happened. I had guns pulled on me, but my awareness helped me to get through that. And I'm still here, and I'm still pretty. See?
That's great.
Oh my goodness, I can't touch that one. I can't see that side, but anyway. But the eye must see all sides. Let's think about, when we were talking about society, so think about it on a mental and spiritual aspect. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with all sides, but we have to see all sides. We have to recognize the way that our enemies think, the way that they move, the way that they operate, even our adversaries, how their position on things. We have to be able to see that side and understand it, whether we agree with it or accept it or not. To see it, seeing is understanding. So I think seeing all sides and in the manner in which we do that is very crucial, in my opinion. Just my opinion.
When you're negotiating something, you have to see everything.
Yes,
absolutely. You have to try to figure out what the people is thinking, and I think that code goes to there. But also, when I talk about personal awareness, it's not only in fighting or places. Maybe you have a person in front of you that behaves in one aspect, and he does another.
Mm.
And you have to be careful with that because you can be sure this is coming to stop. And sometimes we believe so much in people that we bring our guards down.
Mm.
And that's what that code says to us.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the very last code. The eye must listen in all directions. I mean, the ear must listen in all directions. The eye must listen too, I guess. But the ear must listen in all directions.
Maybe down in Tennessee, but yeah.
That's a funny joke that
Because of the moonshine.
my stepson made about Rebecca. Auntie Matey, you'll love this. The other day, we had to go pick up her glasses, and we went and picked up her glasses, and he goes, "Good, you can hear now. You got your glasses." I thought that was kind of
Oh boy.
but yeah, the ear must listen in all directions. It's pretty self-evident as far as what it's saying, but then again, I think it may be relating to we must hear what the message is from everyone before we draw conclusions. And what really struck me to this tonight was when Master Cimarosi said, "Get all the facts."
Yeah.
You must hear all the facts before you draw the conclusion. So that I appreciate that one because that really opened up a perspective there.
Yeah. Hanchi Mede brought up a good point. With all the polarization in this world, you really have to hear all the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conclusion. Absolutely.
We're all one, just like he said.
All one. Yes.
Yeah.
It's-
And I mean, if you jump in too early with it, I mean, just like on big scale, like you can mess up because you don't have all the facts, but small scale, tactical level, like you can bite off on a feint and end up with somebody's fist planted square in your face off of it. I mean, so it's like these same principles taken small, you can, the macrocosm is being reflected by the microcosm. And so it's, yeah, I love it.
I tell the kids in my class, look, listen, and learn. Those are the three main rules in my class. And it's important to look, observe, and listen. I've been very lucky to travel quite a bit to a lot of countries with competitions and teaching. And I really looked and I listened. I enjoyed the different cultures, and I got to understand where they're coming from. That's the problem today. People don't want to try to understand where others are coming from. They live differently. But I'll give you an example. One of my students, longtime students, he was a fighter. He unfortunately passed away of cancer about 6 months ago. And great guy, Lebanese guy. He was Muslim. I went to the mosque. I'm Arab, but I'm Greek Orthodox. I'm Christian. But to me, none of that really matters in a certain perspective. But the imam, like their priest, he was going to say some great words about Bassem was his name and do a prayer. Then he realized that a lot of the young people didn't speak Arabic. I speak Arabic, but they didn't because they were born here and they haven't kept up with the language and culture. And so he spoke and did the prayers in English. You know what? It was all the same as what I've heard in a Catholic church. It was the same as I've heard in the Greek Orthodox. It was the same as I've heard in a temple. The message was all the same. So you have to listen to that message. You have to listen to see where they're coming from. It really was all the same. They were all talking about, if we're going to talk religious, all about the one God. That was the message. And I was thinking that when he was speaking, I'm going, wow, this is great. I'm glad that I went and I heard that. I really listened to what he was saying. Yeah. And I think we all have to start listening.
When I was 19 years old, that's a very long time ago, Master Cooling was here in Puerto Rico. And we were in a place and everybody was talking loud. And he was telling me, he's saying this, he's saying this.
Mm.
These people were talking in Spanish. And I look at him and say, do you know Spanish? He say, no, but I can hear the sound of the voice.
Mm.
And I can read people. And that shows you that you have to hear everybody, that you have to be aware of
All directions. Yep.
Oh, yeah. You know, and I was surprised about that because he said he's doing this. Hello. You know, very amazing. Very amazing.
One thing that I find interesting, and if I know Anshi Black will appreciate this one, is that I don't know if you guys remember some of the Ed McGrath videos, but he was doing a thing on sound and the clicking sound he would do. When Barry Steinberg was at my dojo, he was talking about fighting, and he would make this clicking sound, and he said that
part of the setup.
Yeah. And so that was a very interesting class because it really brought to perspective of paying attention to how someone walks as their how they move in the ring, getting that timing, getting that tempo, all based on sound, was amazing. And listen into the different directions. For example, if someone was coming in very quickly at you, it may be a little bit different of when they was just trying to move around and try to study you, or if they're coming in lower. For example, if you listen to the sound, and Hanshi Meidi's done this a lot, if you listen to the sound of someone going to do a takedown versus someone shuffling in to kick at you, it's a different sound. You hear a click, click, thump whenever they go to the ground to take you down. It's a different sound. It's a different setup with the sound. Sometimes when you're fighting, we are subconsciously, we pick up on those noises. We know when to avoid and when to evade. So I think, you know, I wanted to bring that to the stage because I'll never forget that class. When Barry taught that class, I was just blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was a fabulous lesson.
And the time the two were so totally different that usually your opponent was screwed at that point, you know?
Yeah.
No, that was great.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, guys, that concludes the 8 Codes of Isshinryu Karate. And I want to thank the masters and the grandmasters that tuned in tonight and shared their knowledge and wealth of information with us. And you know, one thing we did tonight was, I'm sure Tatsuo would be proud because we shared his culture, the Kempo Gokui, and sharing his philosophies and his ideas and his concepts and his principles. And I hope that some of the young generation finds that these things will enhance their training and give them a different perspective on how they can train. If you include all 8 of these things into your training, it will increase your abilities and your capabilities of things that you do. I've got to say personally, gratitude, thank you, and I'm truly honored that you guys chose to spend your evening on the Isshinryu Today podcast. I'm truly honored, and I just want you guys to know that it really meant a lot to me for you coming on here. Kurt did try to come on, but it says that for some reason it keeps saying it won't let him in. It says that it's full, but it's not. So I'm going to have to get with StreamYard and find out. But Kurt, if you're listening, I know you've got a lot of information, and I thank you for making an attempt to come on this evening. And I apologize.
Follow the instructions.
Do what, sir?
Next time he have to follow the instructions.
Is that what it is?
I got my daughter to do this for me. I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. Kyle, you said an hour and a half. Timed it absolutely perfect. You are a great master of ceremony, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for
inviting us.
All right,
Hey,
guys, that's going to conclude tonight's episode. Roddy, do you have something to say real quick?
I just wanted to send some positive energy to Miss Becca for her Tuifakata tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
At 10 o'clock in the morning is about the time she'll be performing. And we know she's going to do a great job.
Look, you guys don't understand. If she doesn't win first, she's got to do 65 push-ups for Master Cimarosi.
Well, I know she won't have to do that. I know she's going to take first place, though.
Wow. Good
Yeah,
luck.
We're sending positive energy your way.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm going to make sure that she drinks plenty of Puerto Rican and Wawa
Oh,
coffee.
yeah. Puerto Rican coffee, she will have the,
She will have all the energy she
training.
needs.
You throw a
And
little
Don't
salt
drink
in
Wawa coffee and then Arabic coffee. Don't drink that.
Yeah, I see that. The eyes got to see all sides. I saw
There
her
you
give
go.
me that.
Albert,
Yeah.
Neil, nice to meet you.
Nice.
Neil, it was an honor.
Thank
Good to
you.
meet
Honor,
everyone.
sir.
Thank you,
Pleasure to
everybody.
meet everyone and to see everyone.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good night, folks. We'll see you
God
right
bless
back here
everyone. Be
next
safe.
Wednesday. We have a tournament on Saturday, so we'll be back here Wednesday instead of Sunday.
We're doing
At
a live
8 o'clock
self-defense.
Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing a live self-defense demonstration, so hope you'll tune in. And you guys are welcome back to join in with that too if you'd like. I'd love to have you get your ideas, your concepts, and your principles. Thank you, guys. God bless you. I love you guys.
Thanks.
Good night, and thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Thanks again.
Goodbye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, Hunchy
Take
Little.
care.
Yes, Auntie Little.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good
now.
night.